Hello, North Central Region. Welcome to the sixth and final installment of the Polar Vortex meetings. I'm coming to you from the place that we've survived the Polar Vortex. It's in front of a stove or some other source of heat. And we are in northwestern Wisconsin. We experienced 30 below without the wind chills during this time. We know that many of you across the country that dealt with temperatures that you were nowhere prepared for, maybe even snow and ice, and it's lasted for days up to a week or more, and we're sorry to hear about that. For us, it's just part of normal life. we took our troop out camping in it and had a blast. So what we're going to talk about today is the aspect of having to deal with hostiles and how to keep them away. So whenever we think of hostiles, most people would quickly go to, there's a bear in my tent or something crazy like that. Maybe a coyote's dragging one of the trailmen out into the bushes. But there are a lot of things that you wouldn't think about in cases like that. Second one would very rarely happen. But so what we're going to do during the rest of this video is cover a lot of different animals that could be considered hostiles in certain situations at least. And then we're also going to cover some things that you probably don't think about. You might have thought about it during the real polar vortex this last week, but we're going to cover some things that you need to keep away, whether they be animals or they be nature, and those things are just going to happen. What we're going to do is we're going to go to a couple of our adventurers from our troop here at Lady Smith, and they are Zeke Waller, who's our quartermaster, and Elijah Hendrick, who is our first officer. And they're going to walk you through the list of the different hostiles, and then we're going to go over ways that you might be able to avoid or back out of bad situations that you might have gotten yourself into with some of those hostiles. And what we're going to talk about for the final part of the discussion are ways that you can avoid getting into trouble with hostiles. That way they're not hostiles, they're just nice things to look at in the environment around you as you're enjoying a wonderful camping trip or a scenic tour through God's creation, whether it just be for a day or you're out there for 7 to 10 days on something that's more like a high adventure trip. So good luck to y'all, and we'll see you at the end of the video.
Hello, I'm Elijah Hendrick, and we are going to be going over the main topics for hostile creatures. The first topic is the annoying kind, followed by the rodent kind, the bird kind, stinky kind, toothy kind, the creepy crawly not so toothy kind, man's best friend kind, silent and deadly toothy kind, freight train kind, also including weather, which is lightning, floods, wind, heat, and cold.
Hi, I am Zeke Waller, and I am an adventurer from Wisconsin 1221. Here's a list of animals that might be included in hostile category. Annoying kind. These could include mosquitoes and other biting creatures. And there's the rodent kind. These are like mice, which are really annoying. And there's chipmunks and squirrels. And then there's bird kind, which are crows. And there's the stinky kind, which are skunks. They cause a lot of commotion, just don't go behind them. Then there's the toothy kind. They include raccoons, and raccoons can steal your food, and there's muskrats, and then there's beavers and bears like stealing food too, so keep your food up high. And then there's badgers, which is like in our Wisconsin flag. And then there's the wolverine. Then there's creepy and crawly animals that don't bite, which are snakes, and snakes are really deadly if they're venomous. And then there's spiders. And then there's man's best kind. And then there's a fox. And fox are small and cunning. And then there's coyotes, which are shot for sport a lot. And then they're really fast and smart. And then there's wolves. Wolves can hunt in packs, and they kill a lot of things frequently in the day. Then there's the silent and deadly kind, which include bobcats and other types of big cats, which also includes a cougar and a mountain lion, which is the same thing as a cougar. And they like climbing in trees a lot. And there's a panther, which is also the same thing. It just depends on where you live, on how you go home. Then there's the freight train kind, which plow through you, which may include buffalo, and they can charge you and kill you, and they can be in the middle of the road, and do not approach them. Then there's cattle, and they are almost like buffalo, except they don't weigh as much and they're not as smart. And then there's moose. They are just moose.
Hostiles. We're going to talk about how you can avoid them, whether they be animal or weather, and simple measures that you can take to ensure 90-something% of the time you're not going to have to deal with it. So, first place we're going to start is in the campsite. If you take good care of your campsite, you keep your stuff picked up, you keep food away from the campsite, you don't take snacks out, throw them in your tent for later, or drop the wrappers from your snack packs in there, or in your pack, or just leave them laying around the site in general, you're going to attract a lot less for wildlife that could become hostile. So you need to keep your food prep areas and your meal areas at least 200 feet away from your campsite, and they need to be downwind from your campsite. That also goes for for any animal carcass that you might have to dispose of, and by that I mean you caught a fish for dinner, you cleaned it, you're going to have some remains left over. Take it several hundred feet away, not in the same direction as where you prep your food. Make sure it's downwind and get rid of it. The other thing, main area that's going to be important is where are you going to hang up all of your food for the night. You need to find a spot that's a couple hundred feet away. Notice that 200-foot numbers keeps popping up, and it needs to be downwind. And you want to find a tree that you can, one, use by itself to hang a rope over a limb that would be 6 to 10 feet from the trunk, and then you would tie off one end of the rope to the trunk and hook up a carabiner to your pack and put all your food, put all of your personal hygiene products such as toothpaste, deodorant, any kind of skincare creams that you might need, anything that could have a sweet odor to it, possibly have oils in it, needs to go in that bag, needs to be sealed shut and sent up the line to where it's 6 to 10 feet off the ground, or I'm sorry, 12 to 15 feet off the ground, 6 to 10 feet away from the tree trunk. And you want to try to pick a limb that's not going to support the weight of the bear, so the bear can't climb up the tree and come at your pack of food from the direction of the heavens. The next thing you want to do that would be better is to tie a rope with a carabiner in the center between two trees that are at least 20 feet apart, and then you can winch up your pack 10, 15, 20 feet off the ground that way, and it's far from the trunks and there's no way the bear can get to it and pull it down. So that'll keep everybody safe in their tents, because everything that the bear would be interested in will be down there 200 feet away downwind in that pack. The other things you might want to think about is zipping up your zippers on tents, hammocks. Sleeping bags should probably be rolled up in the stuff sack if they aren't stored in the tent, where it's zipped up safe from the creepy crawly hostile animals. And then the other items you want to consider are, don't be chewing gum, little kitties, all around camp. Because if you spit that out, or you take it to bed with you and stick it in your shoe, things are going to smell it. So keep everything safe, keep everything clean by doing clean up behind yourself all the time. Don't be like some of our trailmen who just leave things all over the place. Thinking of one little special guy that we gave my grandfather's name to that just leaves stuff everywhere. He's going to grow out of that eventually, but till then, you got to help watch out for the trailmen and the Woodlands Trail program if they're there on a car camp out type thing, and keep things cleaned and picked up. The last part we're going to cover for hostiles is when you're on the trail. You want to make a lot of noise when you're on the trail, and it'll help keep you from surprising an old sow with some cubs and any other animals that could be along the way. You might run into bison or buffalo. You might run into cattle. Cattle actually kill people that are hiking every year, and you don't want to be a part of that. So make sure you're making a little noise. If you're hiking solo, put some bells on your gear. Maybe you have a whistle that you blow every once in a while if you think you're in an area that's heavy with especially bear activity. And you can look for signs like scat all over the ground, or you can see places on the trees where they've clawed and chewed on it. Just make sure you're a little loud. It works well for our troop. When we're on the trail, our trailmen are really, really loud, and I can guarantee you that there aren't any hostiles within a county's radius of us whenever we're out there. So we're all safe because of that, even if it's a little overwhelming sometimes. The next thing you want to think about is weather. Weather can be a hostile. Those of you that were stuck in the polar vortex this last week know that weather can get pretty nasty in a hurry in ways that you wouldn't expect. I grew up in Texas, and I know that many of you, some of my family are still down there, had to deal with temperatures that were sub-zero, and that's not something that you're used to. Most of you think when it's 60 degrees it's time to put the parka on, and I understand that. We used to live there. Be prepared when you're out in the weather for the kind of conditions you could have. Check the forecast. If you're setting up camp and you're in an area that's prone to flash floods, don't set up in the low areas where the water's going to be coming through. If it's going to rain, make sure that you're setting up on higher ground periods so you don't end up in a low spot that's just going to hold water and stay wet. And if you're camping where it's windy, you're going to want to try to set up so you can avoid some of the direct winds, and build fires if it's appropriate. Check with the Department of Natural Resources or the wardens in the area, or if you're National Forest, check with forest rangers before you go in to make sure whether you can build a fire. There may be restrictions on that. We camped in the Boundary Waters one time, and there was a forest fire pretty close to where we were. It had been dry all summer, and they didn't want anybody having campfires, period. You had to bring a gas stove in. So always check for stuff like that. That'll help you keep hostiles or hostile situations from happening to you and the rest of your troop. Thank you. On behalf of Wisconsin 1221, thank you for attending, and have a great night.
And remember to walk worthy.
Now get out there and hit the trail.